Ethan Marshall stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his Denver penthouse, watching the city lights flicker beneath the gathering storm clouds. His reflection stared back at him. Perfectly tailored suit, precisely trimmed hair, and the stern expression of a man accustomed to having everything under control. Behind him, Olivia moved quietly through their immaculate living room, her 8-month pregnant belly a stark contrast to the sharp, modern lines of their furniture. "The doctor said everything looks perfect," Olivia mentioned, her voice carrying a hint of hope that this time he might show some interest. Ethan merely nodded, his eyes fixed on the storm brewing outside. The pregnancy had never been part of his carefully constructed plan. In his mind, their marriage was supposed to be a partnership of equals, both focused on their careers and maintaining the lifestyle he had meticulously designed. The thunder rolled across the sky, and Olivia flinched slightly. She had noticed the growing distance between them over the past months, the way Ethan's eyes seemed to look through her rather than at her. Their once passionate conversations about their shared future had dwindled into uncomfortable silences. The baby kicked, and she placed a hand on her belly, remembering how Ethan had refused to feel the movement when she'd offered. "We need to talk," Ethan announced suddenly, turning from the window. His voice carried the same tone he used in board meetings when preparing to dismiss an underperforming employee. "This isn't working anymore, Olivia. This isn't what I signed up for." Olivia felt her heart rate quicken, but years of dealing with Ethan's cold demeanor had taught her to maintain her composure. "What exactly isn't working, Ethan? Our marriage, or the fact that you're about to become a father?" "All of it," he replied, his words cutting through the air like ice. "I built this life brick by brick, everything in its place, everything serving a purpose. This baby, it's chaos, it's disorder, it's everything I've spent my life avoiding." The rain began to fall outside, heavy drops pattering against the windows. Olivia stood her ground, one hand protectively cradling her belly. "You can't control everything, Ethan. Life doesn't work that way." "My life does," he countered, reaching for his car keys. "Get your coat. We're going for a drive." Something in his tone made Olivia's skin crawl, but she found herself following him to the elevator down to the parking garage where his black luxury SUV waited. As they pulled out into the stormy night, Olivia noticed they were heading away from the city, toward the outskirts where the streets grew darker and the houses more sparse. The windshield wipers fought against the increasing downpour, and Olivia watched as the city lights faded behind them. They drove in silence, the tension building with each passing mile. When Ethan finally pulled over on a deserted stretch of road, surrounded by dense forest, Olivia felt her breath catch in her throat. "Get out," he said quietly, his hand still gripping the steering wheel. "Ethan, you can't be serious," Olivia whispered, but his expression remained unchanged. "Get out, Olivia. This is where our paths separate. I've already had your things packed and sent to a storage unit. The access code will be texted to you." His voice was eerily calm, as if he were discussing a business transaction. The rain pounded against the car roof as Olivia stared at him, searching for any sign of the man she had fallen in love with, any hint of humanity behind those cold eyes. Finding none, she opened the door, the storm immediately drenching her as she stepped out onto the wet asphalt. Before she could say another word, Ethan drove away, leaving her alone in the darkness. As the tail lights disappeared around a bend, Olivia stood frozen, one hand on her belly, the other clutching her phone, which, she quickly discovered, had no signal in this remote location. The wind howled through the trees, and somewhere in the darkness, a sound caught her attention. Through the curtain of rain, she saw a shape emerging from the shadows, a magnificent German shepherd watching her with intelligent eyes. The dog's presence was neither threatening nor fearful. It simply stood there, as if it had been waiting for her all along. If this story has captured your interest, don't forget to subscribe to our channel and give us a like. Tell us which city you're watching from. Let's continue. The German Shepherd took a step forward, its wet fur glistening in the dim light of the moon that occasionally broke through the storm clouds. Olivia felt an inexplicable sense of comfort in the animal's presence, as if the universe had sent her a guardian when she needed one most. The dog's intelligent eyes seemed to assess her situation, and after a moment it turned slightly, looking down a path that led away from the main road. "You want me to follow you?" Olivia asked, knowing it sounded ridiculous to talk to a dog. But at this point, she had nothing to lose. The shepherd responded by taking a few steps in that direction, then looking back at her expectantly. With no better options and the rain soaking through her clothes, Olivia decided to trust this strange companion. They walked for what felt like hours, but was probably closer to 40 minutes. The dog stayed close, occasionally brushing against her leg, as if to reassure her of its presence. When Olivia needed to rest, the shepherd would wait patiently, its alert ears constantly monitoring their surroundings. Finally, through the curtain of rain, she saw it, a cabin, its dark silhouette barely visible among the trees. As they approached, Olivia noticed that while the cabin showed signs of age, it wasn't completely abandoned. The roof appeared solid, and the windows, though dusty, were intact. The front porch creaked under her weight as she stepped up to the door, which surprisingly swung open with just a gentle push. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of wood and thyme, but it was dry and sheltered from the storm. The German Shepherd shook itself, spraying water droplets across the wooden floor, then moved to sit by the door like a sentinel. Olivia fumbled in her pocket for her phone's flashlight, illuminating the interior of what appeared to be a one-room cabin with a small attached kitchen area. The furniture was sparse but serviceable, a bed pushed against one wall, a wooden table with 2 chairs, and a pot-bellied stove that looked like it might still work. What caught her attention, however, were the signs that someone had been here relatively recently. There was a stack of firewood by the stove, and when she opened a cabinet in the kitchen area, she found some canned goods that hadn't expired. "This is strange," Olivia muttered to herself, running her hand along the dusty table surface. The dog watched her curiously as she explored, its eyes following her movements. In the kitchen drawer, she found matches and some candles, which she quickly lit to provide better illumination than her phone's flashlight. As the candlelight flickered across the walls, something caught her eye. Near the bed, partially hidden behind a faded curtain, there was writing on the wall. Olivia moved closer, pushing the fabric aside. The name Eleanor was carved into the wood, the letters showing signs of age, but still clearly legible. A crack of thunder made her jump, and the baby kicked in response to her startled movement. Olivia placed a hand on her belly, trying to calm both herself and her unborn child. "It's okay," she whispered. "We're safe here." The German Shepherd made a soft huffing sound, as if agreeing with her assessment. Exhausted from the night's events, Olivia searched the cabin's storage chest and found some blankets that, while musty, were clean enough to use. She spread one on the bed and sat down, finally allowing herself to process everything that had happened. Her perfect life had unraveled in a matter of hours, yet somehow she didn't feel as broken as she thought she would. The dog settled itself at the foot of the bed, its presence providing an unexpected sense of security. As Olivia lay down, trying to find a comfortable position with her pregnant belly, her mind wandered to the name on the wall. Who was Eleanor? Why had she carved her name here? And what was the story behind this strange cabin that seemed both abandoned and maintained at the same time? Outside, the storm continued to rage, but inside the cabin, a different kind of energy was building. Despite her situation, Olivia felt a growing sense of curiosity about this place and its mysteries. Something about the cabin called to her, as if it had been waiting for her arrival just as surely as the German Shepherd had been waiting on that dark road. As she drifted off to sleep, Olivia couldn't shake the feeling that finding this cabin wasn't just luck or coincidence. There was something more here, something she needed to discover. Her last conscious thought before sleep claimed her was of the name on the wall, Eleanor, and why it seemed to whisper of secrets waiting to be unveiled. Morning light filtered through the dusty windows, casting long shadows across the cabin's wooden floor. Olivia woke to the sound of birds chirping outside and the comforting presence of the German shepherd still guarding the foot of the bed. The storm had passed, leaving behind a fresh, clean scent that drifted in through the cracks in the walls. As she sat up, stretching her tired muscles, Olivia noticed something she had missed in the darkness of the previous night. There was a subtle pattern to the wooden panels on one wall, a slight misalignment that seemed intentional rather than the result of age. The German shepherd watched with interest as she approached the wall, running her fingers along the seams of the panels. "There's something here," she murmured, pressing gently against different sections until she felt a slight give. With a soft click, a small panel swung open, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, she found a leather-bound journal, its pages yellowed with age but still intact. The name Eleanor Brighton was written in elegant script on the first page, dated 20 years earlier. The dog moved to sit beside her as she settled into one of the wooden chairs, carefully opening the journal. The handwriting was clear and precise, telling the story of a woman who had come to the cabin seeking solitude and answers. Eleanor, it seemed, had been a successful artist from Denver who had disappeared from the public eye at the height of her career. "I found my sanctuary," the first entry read. "Here, away from the expectations and demands of others, I can finally breathe. The cabin speaks to me in ways my old life never did. There are mysteries here, secrets waiting to be uncovered, but for the first time in years, I'm not afraid of the unknown." As Olivia read on, she discovered that Eleanor had come to the cabin running away from a controlling husband who had tried to stifle her creativity and independence. The parallels to her own situation were striking, but what captivated her most were Eleanor's descriptions of the strange experiences she had in the cabin. "The most remarkable thing happened today," one entry described. "I was struggling with my latest painting, feeling lost and uncertain when I found a hidden drawer in the old desk. Inside was a collection of photographs from the 1950s, showing a woman painting at an easel in this very cabin. Her work was extraordinary, full of light and color in a way I've never seen before. But it's what happened next that truly amazed me." The entry ended there, the next page torn out. Olivia flipped through the journal, finding more gaps where pages had been removed. The remaining entries spoke of discoveries, of a growing sense of purpose, and of a mystery that seemed to be slowly revealing itself. Eleanor wrote about finding old letters, photographs, and artwork hidden throughout the cabin, each piece connecting to a larger story. The German shepherd suddenly lifted its head, ears perked toward the window. Olivia heard it too. The sound of a vehicle on the distant road. Her heart raced for a moment before she realized it was too far away to be of concern. Still, the interruption reminded her of her precarious situation. Looking around the cabin with fresh eyes, Olivia began to notice other details that seemed significant. The arrangement of the furniture wasn't random. The bed, table, and old desk formed a pattern that Eleanor had mentioned in her journal. According to her writings, the positioning was important, though she never explained why. Standing up, Olivia walked to the desk, studying it carefully. The German shepherd followed, watching intently as she ran her hands along its surface. Her fingers found a small irregularity in the wood, and when she pressed it, she heard a click. A drawer that had appeared to be purely decorative sprang open slightly. Inside, she found a key. Old and ornate, unlike any modern key she had ever seen. Attached to it was a note in Eleanor's handwriting, "For the one who comes after. When you're ready, you'll know where it leads." The discovery sent a shiver of excitement through Olivia. She held the key up to the morning light, studying its intricate design. The German Shepherd made a soft sound, almost like a hum of approval. Whatever Eleanor had found here, whatever truth she had uncovered, Olivia was now part of that ongoing story. As she continued to explore the cabin, Olivia felt something she hadn't experienced since before her marriage to Ethan. A sense of genuine purpose. She wasn't just hiding or running away. She was uncovering something meaningful. Something that connected her to a lineage of women who had found strength in this mysterious place. The key felt warm in Olivia's hand, as if it held energy of its own. She had spent the morning exploring the cabin more thoroughly, finding small details that Eleanor had mentioned in her journal. Marks on the walls that seemed to form a pattern, the way the sunlight created specific shapes through the windows at different times of day. The German Shepherd had become more active, occasionally walking to different corners of the cabin and looking at her expectantly. It was as if the dog knew something she didn't, trying to guide her toward another discovery. Following its lead, Olivia noticed a peculiar feature in the floorboards near the old desk. They weren't quite aligned with the rest. "What do we have here?" she murmured, kneeling down carefully, her pregnant belly making the movement awkward. The dog watched intently as she ran her fingers along the edges of the boards. There was definitely something different about this section. Using the technique she had learned from Eleanor's journal, Olivia pressed various spots until she heard a familiar click. A small trapdoor revealed itself, and inside was a wooden box, its surface carved with intricate patterns that matched the design on the key she had found. Her hands trembling slightly with excitement, Olivia inserted the key into the lock. It turned smoothly as if it had been waiting for this moment. Inside the box, she found a collection of letters, photographs, and a small leather-bound notebook different from Eleanor's journal. The photographs showed various women throughout different decades, all in or around the cabin. Each woman had signed the back of their photo, and as Olivia read the names, she realized she was looking at a legacy that spanned generations. The notebook contained entries from multiple women, each adding their own chapter to the cabin's story. They wrote of finding strength here, of discovering their true selves away from the constraints of society and controlling relationships. Some stayed for days, others for months or years, but each left their mark and their wisdom for those who would come after. As Olivia read, the German Shepherd laid its head on her lap, offering silent companionship. One entry particularly caught her attention. It was from a woman named Sarah in 1962. "The cabin chooses its visitors. Each of us comes here when we need it most, guided by forces we don't fully understand. The dog has always been here, though none of us knows exactly what it is or where it came from. It appears to those who are meant to find this place, leading them to safety and understanding." The revelation stunned Olivia. She looked at the German Shepherd, who met her gaze with those intelligent, knowing eyes. How many women had this mysterious guardian led to sanctuary? How long had it been watching over this place and its secrets? A sudden movement in her belly reminded her of the life growing inside her, and Olivia felt a deep connection to all the women who had sought refuge here. Each had faced their own challenges, their own versions of control and constraint, and each had found something here that helped them reclaim their power. Among the papers, she found recent documents that made her breath catch, newspaper articles about Eleanor Brighton's successful return to the art world 5 years ago. The articles spoke of a mysterious period of seclusion that had transformed her work, bringing new depth and understanding to her paintings. Eleanor hadn't disappeared, she had evolved. Looking around the cabin now, Olivia began to see it differently. This wasn't just a shelter from the storm or a hiding place, it was a crucible of transformation, a space where women found the strength to reshape their lives. The furniture arrangement that had seemed so significant in Eleanor's journal now appeared to be part of something larger. like a pattern that connected all the stories that had unfolded here. The German Shepherd suddenly stood, ears alert. Through the window, Olivia saw a car passing on the distant road and recognized it immediately. Ethan's black SUV. Her heart raced, but not from fear. She felt something else entirely, a sense of readiness. The women who had been here before had faced their pasts and emerged stronger. Now it was her turn. The dog moved to stand beside her, its presence steady and reassuring. In the afternoon light, the cabin seemed to pulse with the energy of all the stories it held, all the transformations it had witnessed. Olivia placed her hand on her belly, feeling her baby move, and knew with certainty that her story and her child's story were now part of this continuing legacy. The sound of footsteps on the porch made Olivia straighten her spine. She had known this moment would come. Ethan had never been one to leave loose ends untied. The German Shepherd stood alert but calm beside her, its presence giving her strength. When the knock came, it was sharp and authoritative, exactly like Ethan himself. "Olivia, I know you're in there," his voice carried through the door, controlled as always, but with an edge she had never heard before. "The locals at the gas station mentioned seeing a pregnant woman with a dog. Open the door." She took a deep breath, gathering the strength of all the women who had stood in this cabin before her. The hidden box with its letters and photographs lay open on the table, testament to generations of resilience. With deliberate steps, Olivia walked to the door and opened it. Ethan stood there in his perfectly pressed suit, looking completely out of place among the rural surroundings. His eyes widened slightly at the sight of her. Not the broken woman he had expected to find, but someone altogether different. The German Shepherd moved to stand beside her, and Ethan took an involuntary step back. "You shouldn't have come," Olivia said quietly, her voice steady. "This isn't your world anymore." "Don't be dramatic," he scoffed, but his usual confidence seemed forced. "I've come to take you home. This little adventure has gone on long enough. What would our friends think if they knew you were hiding out here like some kind of refugee?" "That's exactly what I was," she replied, one hand resting on her belly. "A refugee from the prison of perfection you built around us. But I'm not hiding anymore, Ethan. I'm finding myself." He tried to step into the cabin, but the German Shepherd moved forward slightly, not aggressive, but unmistakably protective. Ethan halted, and for the first time, Olivia saw uncertainty flicker across his face. "What's happening to you?" he demanded. "This isn't like you, Olivia. Living in some abandoned shack, talking about finding yourself. This isn't the woman I married." "The woman you married was a carefully constructed illusion," Olivia said, gesturing to the interior of the cabin. "Look around, Ethan. Really look. Do you see perfection here? Do you see control? No. You see life, real life, with all its beautiful imperfections." She walked to the table and picked up one of the photographs from the box. "This cabin has been a sanctuary for generations of women, each finding their own path to freedom. Eleanor Brighton was here. Yes, that Eleanor Brighton whose paintings you tried to buy last year. She came here running from a man just like you, and she left as one of the most celebrated artists of our time." Ethan's face tightened with frustration. "You're not making sense. This is just a rundown cabin in the middle of nowhere. Whatever stories you've invented—" "I haven't invented anything," Olivia interrupted. "For the first time in my life, I'm seeing things clearly. You didn't bring me home when we married, Ethan. You put me in a display case, like one of your art acquisitions, but I'm not an object to be controlled or displayed. I'm alive, I'm growing, I'm changing, and yes, I'm messy and imperfect and real." The afternoon sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the dust motes in the air and casting long shadows across the wooden floor. The German Shepherd sat calmly at Olivia's feet, its presence a silent affirmation of every word she spoke. "What do you want?" Ethan asked finally, his voice hollow. I want you to understand that you didn't break me when you left me on that road, Olivia said softly. You set me free. Every woman who has found this cabin was brought here for a reason. This place... She looked around at the walls that held so many secrets, so many stories of transformation. This place is more than just shelter. It's a crucible where we discover our true strength. She saw something shift in Ethan's eyes. Not understanding exactly, but perhaps the beginning of recognition. The perfectly ordered world he had built was crumbling around him, while she stood firmly in her newfound truth. Our baby deserves to know what real love looks like, she continued, her hand gentle on her belly. Not the controlled, conditional kind you offered, but the wild, messy, beautiful love that allows people to grow and change. The German Shepherd moved forward again, and this time Ethan took several steps back, nearly stumbling off the porch. In that moment, Olivia saw him clearly, not as the powerful man who had tried to break her, but as someone trapped in his own kind of prison. The morning sun painted the cabin in shades of gold, its warm light touching every corner of the space that had become so much more than a refuge. 2 months had passed since Ethan's visit, and Olivia sat in the old rocking chair by the window, cradling her newborn daughter in her arms. The German Shepherd lay contentedly at her feet, its watchful eyes occasionally glancing up at the baby with gentle curiosity. I think it's time, Olivia said softly, looking around at the cabin that had sheltered and transformed her. The hidden box lay open on the table, waiting for her contribution to its collection of stories. Last week, she had finally written her own entry in the leather-bound notebook, adding her voice to the generations of women who had found their strength within these walls. The baby stirred, her tiny fingers wrapping around one of Olivia's. They had named her Eleanor Sarah, honoring both the artist who had left her mark on this place and the woman from 1962 who had first documented the German Shepherd's mysterious presence. The name felt right, a connection to the legacy that had helped bring her into the world. Eleanor Brighton herself had visited yesterday, arriving just as unexpectedly as she had left years ago. Now a renowned artist, she had somehow known to come, as if the cabin had called her back for this moment. She had held baby Eleanor, tears in her eyes as she recognized the circle completing itself. The cabin knows, Eleanor had said, looking around with understanding. It knows when its work with each of us is done, just as it knows who needs to find it next. She had brought one of her paintings as a gift, a stunning canvas that captured the essence of the cabin in swirling colors and light. Now it hung on the wall beside the carved name that had first caught Olivia's attention all those weeks ago. Standing carefully with the baby, Olivia walked to the hidden compartment in the floor. The German Shepherd watched as she knelt and opened it one last time. Inside, she placed an envelope containing her story, a photograph of herself with baby Eleanor, and a letter to the next woman who would find her way here. Dear sister, she had written, when you find this place, know that you are not lost. You are being found. The walls that seem to confine you now will become the foundation of your rebirth. The German Shepherd who guided you here has been guarding this sanctuary for longer than any of us can understand. Trust in the magic of this place, in the strength of the women who came before you, and most importantly, in yourself. As she closed the compartment, Olivia heard a car approaching. Through the window, she saw a familiar figure walking up the path. Amy, her sister, coming to help her move to her new home. After weeks of healing and planning, Olivia had found a small artist's cottage on the outskirts of Denver. Close enough to maintain her connections to the world, but far enough to preserve the wisdom she had gained here. The German Shepherd stood, stretching leisurely before moving to the door. For a moment, Olivia saw it as it truly was, ageless, wise, a guardian of secrets and catalyst for transformation. Thank you, she whispered, and the dog turned to look at her with those knowing eyes, acknowledging the depth of her gratitude. Amy's knock was gentle, respectful of the space she knew had become sacred to her sister. When Olivia opened the door, the morning light streamed in, creating a pattern on the floor that matched the one Eleanor had described in her journal. A sign that change was coming, that the cycle was continuing. "Ready?" Amy asked, smiling at her sister and niece. Olivia looked around one last time, taking in every detail. The desk where she had found Eleanor's journal, the walls that had witnessed her transformation, the windows that had shown her new perspectives with each sunrise. Everything was exactly as it should be, waiting for the next woman who would need its shelter and wisdom. "Yes," Olivia replied, surprising herself with the certainty in her voice. "But there's one more thing we need to do." She reached into her pocket and pulled out the ornate key that had unlocked so many mysteries. With deliberate steps, she walked to the desk and placed it in the hidden drawer, exactly where she had found it. The German Shepherd watched approvingly as the drawer clicked shut. As they stepped out onto the porch, baby Eleanor cooing softly in her arms, Olivia felt the rightness of this moment. She wasn't leaving her sanctuary behind, she was carrying its strength within her. The German Shepherd followed them to the car, then stopped, sitting regally on the porch. "Will we see you again?" Olivia asked, though she already knew the answer. The dog's eyes held the wisdom of ages as it looked at her one last time, before turning to face the cabin's door, ready to welcome the next seeker of truth. The end. Dear viewers, we hope Olivia's journey of transformation has touched your hearts. If you've ever felt lost or constrained, know that your own story of rebirth is waiting to begin. We've created a special playlist of similarly inspiring tales that you can find by clicking the link to your left. If this story resonated with you, please subscribe to our channel and give it a like. We bring you unique stories exploring life's complexities every day. Don't miss our upcoming content. We look forward to reading your thoughts in the comments.